They came without warning. No message, no signal, no demand for surrender. One moment, the sky was blue and quiet. The next, it was gone. 10,000 alien ships appeared above Earth at exactly the same time. Every major city, every ocean, every mountain range, covered in shadow. The ships were so large that people on the ground could not even see the sun anymore. It was 7:43 a.m. on a Tuesday. Most humans were drinking coffee, dropping their children off at school, sitting in traffic jams, living their small, beautiful, ordinary lives. Then the first shot came down. The city of Sydney, Australia, was the first to go. A single beam of white light fell from the sky. It touched the ground for less than 3 seconds when it lifted. Sydney was not there anymore. Not destroyed. Not burning. Just gone. 12 million people vanished in 3 seconds. Then Mumbai, then Cairo, then Los Angeles, then London. One by one, the biggest cities on Earth were erased like words on a chalkboard. The alien ships did not stop. They did not slow down. They moved across the planet like a slow, cold storm, deleting everything below them. People ran, people screamed, people prayed, but the aliens did not care. To them, Earth was not a planet full of life. To them, Earth was just a rock, and they wanted the rock. High above the clouds, inside the lead ship of the alien fleet, the Vaughn commander stood at his viewing window and watched. His name was Grand Admiral Vexka. He had conquered 31 worlds before this one. He was very good at his job. He looked down at the burning planet below and felt nothing. Not pride, not excitement, not even satisfaction. Just the quiet, professional satisfaction of completing a task. Status report, he said calmly. His second in command, a tall alien named Draal, checked his screens. 14 major population centers have been eliminated, sir, Draal said. Human military response is minimal. Their aircraft are launching, but they are too small and too slow. Our shields are not even activating. The humans are not a threat. Vexka nodded slowly. Send the ground teams down. Begin collection of surface minerals. We will be done with this planet in 6 days. Draal hesitated for just a moment. Sir, there is one strange thing, he said quietly. Our sensors are detecting no panic signals from the human military network, no emergency broadcasts, no calls for evacuation. It is very quiet. Vexka looked at him. Quiet? Yes, sir. The human soldiers, the ones who are still alive. They are not running. They are not calling for help. They are just watching us. Vexka turned back to his window and stared down at the planet. He was a smart alien. He had conquered many worlds. He knew what fear looked like from above. He had seen 100 species run and hide and beg, but he had never seen a species just watch. Strange, he said quietly. But he did not think more about it. He had a job to finish. Down on the ground in a small mountain village in the country of Norway, an old man sat on a wooden chair outside his house. His name was Erik Solberg. He was 73 years old. He had white hair, a long gray beard, and very calm blue eyes. Above him, the sky was full of alien ships. The sound they made was deep and heavy, like 1,000 drums beating very slowly. His neighbor, a young woman named Astrid, ran out of her house and grabbed his arm. Erik, we have to go. We have to hide, she shouted. Erik looked up at the ships for a long moment. Then he looked back down at the knife in his hands, the one he had been sharpening slowly and carefully for the past 20 minutes. No, he said simply. Erik, they are destroying everything. They destroyed London. They destroyed Mumbai. We are going to die. The old man was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that Astrid would never forget for the rest of her life. Girl, he said very softly, very calmly, my grandfather told me this day would come. His grandfather told him. And his grandfather before that. Every generation of my family, every generation of every military family on this planet. We have been preparing for exactly this day. For 100 years we have been waiting. Astrid stared at him. Waiting? She whispered. Waiting for what? Erik Solberg looked up at the sky one more time. He almost smiled. For them to make the first move. At that exact moment, deep under the Atlantic Ocean, deeper than any human had ever gone, something woke up. It had no name on any public document. It was not in any news report. It was not in any history book that normal people could read. It was simply called Project Loki. It had been built over 90 years by the combined military forces of every nation on Earth, built in total secret, built specifically for one purpose, one single, terrible purpose. For 9 decades it had waited in the cold and the dark, sleeping, patient, ready now. For the first time in its existence, it received the signal it had been built to receive. 3 words. They fired first. Deep in the machinery of Project Loki, systems that had never been activated began to wake up. 1 by 1, then 10 by 10, then 1,000 by 1,000. Lights came on in the darkness, and Project Loki began to prepare. Grand Admiral Vexka was reviewing the mineral survey reports when Dral ran back into the command room. His face, which was normally flat and emotionless like all Vaughn faces, looked different now. It looked afraid. "Sir," Dral said, his voice shaking just slightly. "Our deep scan sensors just picked up something below the ocean surface." Vexka did not look up from his reports. "What kind of something?" Dral was quiet for 2 full seconds. That was very unusual for Dral. "Sir?" he finally said. "I do not know what to call it. I have never seen anything like it. Our database has no record of this technology. It is not supposed to exist." Now Vexka looked up. "Show me." The screen filled with data. Strange, impossible data. Numbers and readings that made no sense according to everything the Vaughn knew about human technology. The Grand Admiral stared at it for a long, long time, and slowly, for the first time in 31 conquests, he felt something cold move through him, something that felt a lot like fear. "Get me a full fleet analysis," he said quietly. "Right now." But even as he said the words, somewhere deep in his chest, Grand Admiral Vexka already knew. They had made a mistake, a very, very bad mistake. The Vaughn thought they had already won. They were wrong. Grand Admiral Vexka stood at his command window and stared at the data on his screen. The numbers made no sense. The readings were impossible. His best scientists had been studying the signal from deep under the ocean for 11 minutes now, and not one of them could explain what they were looking at. "Sir," said his chief scientist, a small nervous alien named Brix, "whatever is down there, it is not in any record we have of human technology. It is not in any record we have of any technology. This energy signature, we have never seen anything like it in 3,000 years of space exploration." Vexka kept staring at the screen. "How big is it?" he asked quietly. Brix checked his instruments 3 times before answering. "Sir," he said slowly, "it is not one thing. It is thousands of things, spread across every ocean on the planet, under every mountain range, beneath every desert. Whatever the humans built, they built it everywhere." The command room went very quiet. Vexka turned to look at his officers. They were all staring at their screens. Nobody was speaking. Nobody was moving. Then, every alarm on every ship in the Vaughn fleet went off at exactly the same time. Project Loki did not rise slowly. It did not give a warning. It did not announce itself. One moment the oceans were calm and dark. The next, the water exploded upward in 1,000 places at once. From every ocean, from every sea, from every deep, dark corner of Earth's waters, human weapons surfaced like sleeping giants finally opening their eyes. They were called tide cannons. 90 years ago, the greatest engineers on Earth had built them and sunk them to the bottom of the ocean. They had been sitting there in the cold and the dark for decades, waiting, patient, silent. They were waiting for exactly this moment. The first tide cannon fired at 8:17 a.m. Its beam hit a Vaughn warship 17,000 kilometers above the Pacific Ocean. The warship, which was 3 kilometers long and had survived 40 years of space battles, broke apart like a dry leaf in a fire. It was gone in less than 1 second. Then the second cannon fired. Then the third. Then 100. Then 1,000. The sky above Earth turned white. Inside the Vaughn fleet, chaos arrived like a wall. Ships that had been moving slowly and calmly suddenly burst into flames. Captains who had been filing victory reports suddenly had no ships left to stand in. Communication systems screamed with emergency signals. Every Vaughn commander tried to speak at once. Nobody could hear anything. Draal grabbed the edge of his console to stop himself from falling as the flagship shook violently. "Shields!" Vexka shouted. "Maximum shields now!" "Sir, the shields are at maximum," Draal shouted back. "It is not helping. The human weapons are going straight through them. Our shields are not stopping anything." Vexka stared out the window at the destruction happening around him. He watched 3 of his warships disappear in quick, bright flashes, one after another, like lights being switched off. In 31 conquests, Vexka had never lost a single ship. In the last 4 minutes, he had lost 217. "How?" he screamed at his scientists. "How are they doing this? Human technology cannot do this. It is not possible." Brix looked up from his console with wide, frightened eyes. "Sir," he said quietly, "I think I understand now. The humans, they knew we were coming. They have known for a very long time. They built these weapons specifically for us, specifically to defeat our shields, specifically to destroy our ships. They studied us, everything about us, and then they built weapons designed for one single purpose." He paused. To kill Vaughn. But the tide cannons were only the beginning. While the alien fleet was still trying to understand what was hitting them from below, something new appeared above them. From the dark side of the moon, from bases that had been hidden there for 60 years, human spacecraft launched into battle. They were called ghost fighters. They were small, fast, and almost completely invisible to Vaughn sensors. Each one was piloted by a human who had spent their entire adult life training for this exact battle. Some of them had been training since they were 18 years old. Some of them were now 50. They had given their whole lives to one single purpose. And now, finally, that purpose had arrived. The ghost fighters moved through the Vaughn fleet like ghosts through walls. The aliens could not see them on any scanner, could not track them, could not predict where they would appear next. One moment a Vaughn warship was fine, the next moment it was gone. A young Vaughn soldier named Kyle, only his 2nd year in the fleet, watched his brother's ship explode through his window. He tried to call his brother's communication channel. There was no answer. There would never be an answer. Kyle turned to the older soldier beside him. "What is happening?" he whispered. "Why can't we see them? Why can't we stop them?" The older soldier had no answer. He just kept staring at his screen with hollow, empty eyes. Then he said something very softly. "They are not defending themselves." "What?" said Kale. "Look at the attack pattern," the older soldier said, pointing at the screen. "They are not trying to protect their planet. They are not trying to push us away. They are trying to destroy every single ship we have. They are not fighting to survive," he said slowly. "They are hunting us." Grand Admiral Vexka made a decision. It was the hardest decision of his life. It was also the first time in 31 conquests that he had ever made this particular decision. "All ships," he said into the fleet-wide communicator, his voice low and steady even though his hands were shaking. "Begin retreat formation. Pull back to safe distance. We need to regroup and—" A new voice cut into the communication channel. It was calm. It was clear. It was human. And it spoke in perfect Vaughn language. "Grand Admiral Vexka," the voice said. "This is General Sarah Chen of the United Earth Military Command. You attacked our home. You killed our people. You made a choice today, and now we have made ours." A short pause. "There is no safe distance." Vexka grabbed his console. "Track that signal," he shouted. "Where is it coming from?" Draal checked his screens, then checked them again. Then looked up at Vexka with an expression that the Grand Admiral had never seen on any officer's face in 31 years of war. Pure terror. "Sir," Draal whispered, "the signal is coming from everywhere. They are already surrounding us. They have been surrounding us this whole time. We didn't even see them moving into position. Outside the flagship window, the stars began to disappear one by one. Not because the stars were gone, but because something was moving in front of them. Something massive, something dark, something that had been hiding in the shadow of the moon for 60 years and was now, finally, stepping out into the light. The full size of Earth's secret deep space fleet became visible for the very first time, and Grand Admiral Vexka, conqueror of 31 worlds, veteran of 1,000 battles, the most feared military commander in the Vaughn Empire, felt his legs go weak. He had thought Earth was a small, weak, unprotected planet. He had been so terribly, completely, catastrophically wrong. No species had ever made the Vaughn run. In 3,000 years of space conquest, the Vaughn Empire had never retreated from any enemy. They had never lost a war. They had never even lost a major battle. They were the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. Every species that had ever faced them had either surrendered immediately or been completely destroyed. No one had ever chased them, until now. The broken Vaughn fleet limped through deep space like a wounded animal. Of the 10,000 ships that had arrived at Earth with such confidence just 48 hours ago, only 2,300 were still flying. The rest were debris fields floating silently in Earth's orbit, cold metal graves drifting in the dark. Inside the damaged flagship, Grand Admiral Vexka sat alone in his command chair. He was not giving orders. He was not reviewing reports. He was just sitting, staring at nothing. His second-in-command Draal entered the room quietly and stood for a moment before speaking. "Sir," Draal said carefully, "the humans are still following us." Vexka did not move. "How many ships?" "All of them, sir." Another long silence. "They have not fired again," Draal continued. "They are just following, matching our speed exactly, staying just close enough that we cannot jump to hyperspace without them tracking our exit point." Vexka finally turned to look at him. "They are hurting us," he said quietly. "Like animals. They are driving us home on purpose." Draal said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. Because they both knew it was true. "Send a message to the Emperor," Vexka said, his voice empty and flat. "Tell him everything. Tell him exactly what happened. Tell him the humans are coming." Draal hesitated. "Sir, the Emperor will not be pleased." Vexka looked at him with tired, hollow eyes. "Draal," he said softly, "the Emperor should not be pleased. The Emperor should be terrified." On the Vaughn homeworld of Keth Ara, the Emperor's message arrived at 3 a.m. local time. His name was Emperor Voss the Eternal. He had ruled the Vaughn Empire for 200 years. In that time, he had expanded Vaughn territory by 300%. He had crushed 40 rebellions. He had conquered 60 new worlds. He had never once in 200 years been woken up in the middle of the night with bad news. Until tonight, he read Vexka's report 3 times. Then he called his entire High Council into the throne room immediately. 20 of the most powerful beings in the Vaughn Empire stood before him in the cold blue light of the palace. Generals, scientists, politicians, advisors. All of them pulled from their beds, all of them still half asleep. The Emperor stood at the head of the room and read Vexka's report out loud to all of them. When he finished, the room was completely silent. Then one of his oldest generals, a scarred veteran named Grath, who had fought in 40 campaigns, spoke up. "With respect, Emperor," Grath said carefully, "this cannot be accurate. Humans are a Class 3 primitive species. They have only had space travel for 80 years. It is not scientifically possible for them to have technology of this level." The Emperor looked at him. 2,000 ships, Grath," he said quietly. "I sent 10,000. 2,000 came back. Where did the other 8,000 go?" Grath had no answer. "They are 3 days away," the Emperor continued. "The human fleet, they are following our ships home. In 3 days they will be at our doorstep. So I will ask this council one question, and I need an honest answer." He looked around the room at every face. "Can we stop them?" The silence that followed was the loudest silence any of them had ever heard. The answer was no. And everyone in that room knew it. The Vorn's greatest weapon was their shield technology. No enemy weapon in the galaxy could penetrate Vorn shields. That had been true for 200 years. It had been the foundation of every Vaughn military victory, but the humans had built weapons specifically designed to go straight through Vaughn shields, as if the shields were not even there, as if the humans had spent decades studying every detail of Vaughn technology and then built the perfect answer to it, because that is exactly what they had done. Without Vaughn shields, their ships were not special. Without Vaughn shields, their weapons were not stronger than human weapons. Without Vaughn shields, the Vaughn military was just another army, and the human army was very, very angry. The Emperor dismissed his council and stood alone at his palace window, looking out at the capital city of Kethara, the most beautiful city in the galaxy. 100 million Vaughn citizens living their lives below, shopping, working, raising their children, completely unaware that in 3 days, a human war fleet would appear in their sky. For the first time in 200 years, the Emperor did not know what to do. On the third day, the humans arrived. They did not fire, they did not attack, they simply appeared. Thousands of dark human warships filling the sky above Kethara like a second ceiling, silent, still, and absolutely enormous. Every Vaughn citizen on the planet stopped what they were doing and looked up. Children pointed. Mothers pulled their children close. Old soldiers stood in the street and stared with wide eyes at something they had never imagined they would ever see. An enemy fleet above their homeworld. Then a single transmission came through on every communication device on the entire planet. Every screen, every speaker, every personal device. All of them carried the same voice at the same time. It was General Sarah Chen. "People of Kethara," she said, her voice calm and clear. "We did not come here to destroy your world. We did not come here to do to you what your fleet did to our cities. We are not like that. We do not hurt civilians. We do not erase innocent people. That is not what humans do." A pause. "But we need to speak to your Emperor, right now. Because what happens next, whether your world stays standing or not, that decision belongs to him." The Emperor heard her words from his palace. He stood very still for a long moment. Then his personal communicator made a sound. A private channel. Someone was contacting him directly on a line that almost nobody knew existed. He answered it. The voice on the other end was young. It was female. It was Vaughn. And it made his blood run cold. "Father," said the voice, "it is me. Do not do anything stupid. I have been speaking with the humans for 2 days. They are not what you think they are. Please, just listen to them. Because if you don't—" She paused. "I have already told them everything, Father. Everything about the Empire. Every world we control. Every species we have enslaved. They know it all." The Emperor closed his eyes. "Lyra," he said slowly, "what have you done?" His daughter's voice was quiet but completely steady. "I did what was right," she said. "Something our family forgot how to do a very long time ago. The humans are not here to destroy us. They are here to change us. And Father, whether you like it or not, everything is about to change." Outside the palace window, the human fleet hung in the sky like a silent promise. The Emperor stared up at it for a long, long time. And then, for the first time in 200 years, Emperor Voss the Eternal did something he had never done before. He picked up the communication channel, and he asked the humans to talk. The Emperor of the most powerful empire in the galaxy was asking humans to talk. Think about that for a moment. 2,000 years of Vaughn dominance, 3,000 conquered systems, 40 species living as slaves, a military that had never once been defeated in recorded history. And now, their emperor, the most powerful being in the known universe, was sitting in his palace with shaking hands, waiting for a human general to accept his call. General Sarah Chen made him wait for 6 full minutes, not because she was busy. She was sitting right there at her console, watching the call notification blink on her screen, letting it blink. Her communications officer looked at her nervously. "General, the Emperor is waiting." "I know," she said calmly, pouring herself a cup of coffee, taking one slow sip. Then she set the cup down, straightened her uniform jacket, and answered the call. "Emperor Voss?" she said pleasantly, as if she were greeting an old neighbor. "Thank you for reaching out." The conversation lasted 4 hours. Nobody outside those 2 rooms ever heard exactly what was said. The full transcript was classified for 50 years. But the people who were in those rooms, the officers and advisors who sat and listened, they talked about it for the rest of their lives. They said the Emperor began the call with strength, trying to negotiate from a position of power, offering resources, offering territory, offering trade agreements, acting as if this were a normal political discussion between 2 equal empires. General Chen listened politely to all of it. Then she opened a file and began reading. She read the names of every species the Vaughn had conquered. She read the names of every planet they had destroyed. She read the population numbers, how many living beings had been killed or enslaved in 3,000 years of Vaughn expansion. The number was so large it had 47 digits. She read every single digit out loud. By the time she finished, the Emperor was not speaking from a position of power anymore. He was just sitting there quietly, listening to the weight of everything his empire had done. When she finally stopped reading, there was a long silence. "What do you want?" the Emperor asked. His voice was different now, quieter, older somehow. General Chen looked directly into the camera. "We want all of it to stop," she said simply. "Every enslaved species goes free today. Every occupied world gets its independence back. Today, the Vaughn military stands down completely, and then, your empire helps rebuild every single world it ever damaged, not because we are forcing you, but because it is the right thing to do." Another silence. "And if I agree?" the Emperor asked. "Then we go home," Chen said, "and we never have to have this conversation again." "And if I don't agree?" General Chen picked up her coffee cup again, took one more slow sip, and looked at him over the rim. She did not answer. She did not need to. Emperor Voss the Eternal signed the agreement 3 hours later, the moment the news went out across the galaxy, the moment 300 enslaved worlds received the signal that the Vaughn Empire had surrendered and stood down. Something happened that no military strategist had predicted, no political advisor had planned for, no historian had ever recorded before. Every single freed species started transmitting at the same time. Not weapons, not war cries, not anger music. 300 different kinds of music from 300 different worlds, filling the communication channels of the galaxy all at once. Some of it was beautiful, some of it was strange, some of it was just rhythm and noise that humans could not quite understand. But all of it meant the same thing. We are free. Human soldiers sitting in their ships above Kethara heard the transmissions coming in. At first they did not understand what they were hearing. Then their translation systems caught up and explained it. And then, one by one, the toughest, most battle-hardened soldiers in Earth's military started crying. Not because they were sad, because 300 worlds were singing. The liberation teams arrived over the next 30 days. Human ships went to every conquered world, not with weapons ready, but with food, medicine, engineers, builders, and translators. They landed carefully. They moved slowly. They made sure every species understood that they were not new conquerors. They were not replacing the Vaughn. They were just there to help. On a cold gray planet called Marin 7, a small alien child, no more than 4 years old by human counting, watched a human soldier step off a landing craft for the first time. The child had never seen a human before. She stared at the soldier with enormous dark eyes. This strange two-legged creature in heavy armor carrying supplies instead of weapons. The soldier saw her staring. He stopped. He set down everything he was carrying. He crouched down to her level and smiled. The child stared for another long moment. Then she walked forward slowly and touched his hand with one small finger. Just touched it gently, as if checking that he was real. The soldier stayed perfectly still. Then the child turned around and ran back to her mother, tugging on her sleeve urgently, pointing back at the human. Her mother looked up. Her eyes were full of tears she was trying very hard not to show. The child pointed at the human soldier and said one word in her own language. The translation unit on the soldier's wrist turned it into English. The word was safe. The soldier had to look away for a moment. He was a decorated veteran of the hardest space battle in human history. He had fought for 6 days without sleeping. He had watched friends die. He had done things in that war that he would carry with him forever. But that one word from that one small child on that cold gray planet, that was the moment he understood why. Back on Earth, the rebuilding had already begun. The cities that the Vaughn had destroyed were gone, and they could not be brought back. The people who had been lost in those first terrible hours could not be returned. That pain was real and permanent, and no victory could erase it. Humans understood that. They did not celebrate the way people celebrate in stories. There were no great parties, no fireworks, no triumphant speeches in enormous stadiums. There was just quiet, careful, serious work, rebuilding what was lost, honoring who was gone, making sure it never happened again. 6 months after the war ended, a Vaughn historian named Pell, one of the youngest and most respected scholars in the Empire, published a record of everything that had happened. It was read by every species in the galaxy. The last paragraph became the most quoted piece of writing in galactic history. It said this: "The Vaughn attacked humanity because we believed they were weak. We looked at their small bodies and their short lives and their single tiny planet, and we saw nothing worth fearing. We were wrong in every possible way. Humans were not weak. Humans were patient. They had been watching the stars for centuries, not with wonder but with preparation. They knew something that no other species in the galaxy had ever understood, that the universe is not safe. And so they made themselves ready, not just ready to survive, but ready to protect. When we attacked their home, we did not awaken a frightened animal. We awakened something far more dangerous. We awakened a species that fights hardest not for itself, but for others. That is what we never understood. That is what made them unstoppable. Humans do not fight to conquer. Humans fight to protect. And a species that fights to protect, that will never, ever stop." The historian closed his notes, set down his pen, and looked up at the sky above Kethara, where human and Vaughn ships now flew side by side in the early morning light. He thought about everything his empire had lost, and everything the galaxy had gained. Then he wrote one final line at the bottom of the page, outside the official record, just for himself. "We should have been afraid from the very beginning."